Hey there. Happy Wednesday. It's me, Zach Seward. You're watching The Hash on CoinDesk TV. Let's get this thing going. I'm Zach Seward. That's Christy Harkin. We got Will Foxley down the line. We got all sorts of stuff to get to today. Will, you're leading us off with some news out of El Salvador. What's up?
That's right. They are delaying their Bitcoin bond. So President Bukele, El Salvador, first said that they're going to issue a Bitcoin bond in order to build a Bitcoin city in the country right next to a volcano, which is pretty interesting. But they're going to have to delay the $1 billion bond because of unfavorable market conditions. Right now, they're also citing the war in Ukraine and Russia as a possible factor, and they might wait to issue this until at least September. The bond itself, they're saying, is actually oversubscribed, might even have up to as much as $1.5 billion, and it pays out a coupon about 6.5%. So pretty nice interest rate there. The bond will be used to purchase Bitcoin and then also to build this Bitcoin city in the future. Zach, I want to throw the story down to you. A lot of people were talking on Twitter saying like this was expected or they thought this was going to happen. I don't really know how they read that in the tea leaves. Even if it's oversubscribed, it still seems like it could work out, or just maybe just not at the time because there's a lot of international conflict. But I want to get your take on it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, not a great sign as it relates to the El Salvador Bitcoin experiment. I don't know what is behind this. And I think it is kind of interesting to see sort of market conditions be taken into account. It's sort of similar to like, major crypto funding rounds also take into account market conditions, whether it's a good time or not to come out in a splashy, heady environment. But I don't know. I think we need to do a little bit more reporting on this one to see what's going on in the El Salvador Bitcoin experiment. Seems to, the hurdles keep popping up, and seems like, almost a year into this thing. This was announced, I think, last June at Bitcoin Miami down there. Almost a year into this thing, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. Some wins, some losses, and I don't know where this would fall. But I'm going to toss it straight to Christy for her thoughts.
Well, there's been a lot of criticism sort of internationally about what's going on in El Salvador. And to be fair, Bukele has been pretty handy with the middle finger there when it comes to people saying, like the IMF, this is not a good thing, or the US, looking askance at them. And he still has been forging ahead. But you can't ignore the fact that there was a point in which they lost 23% of the value of Bitcoin when the price went down a little while ago. So they have already spent like $85 million on Bitcoin. And when you're buying it at an average of 47,000 per Bitcoin, and then the price dips down to 37 and then recovers to what is it, like 41 or something today, maybe? That's a lot. Like, that's something that you have to be able to go back to your people and say, no, it's still a good idea. Trust me, it's still good. And yes, it's oversubscribed, but you still have to have the right timing. And even though, as Bukele says, it's best to buy when it's low, you still want to make sure that it's going to go back up. And I think people are a little nervous, and maybe he's been listening to that, and he wants to make sure that when it launches big and launches properly.
I'm not super knowledgeable about bond markets. I think is like the main thing I should say before digging into it at all. Like, the bond market is not something I know about. And I don't think a lot of people know about the Bitcoin bond market. That's what made this story so interesting in the first place, is that a sovereign country was creating a bond backed by Bitcoin. The purpose of the bond was to build a Bitcoin city. Like, those are a few things I just strung together that no one has talked about before. So it's not, to me, very surprising that this is not going super well right now. And I think in the future it could go well. We'll have to see. And I'm sure there's going to be new announcements in Miami in a few weeks with the next Bitcoin conference coming up. Maybe they'll do like a Bitcoin Bond 2.0 or something else like that. Who knows? Not super surprising to me. But I'll kick it over to you, Christy, for our next story. We're staying in Bitcoin land, and we're talking about Bitcoin mining, right?
We're talking again about Bitcoin mining. So Bitcoin, there was a bill that's been in a state assembly committee in New York, and it has now come out of committee, and they voted against it. And so it's going to be kicked up to the next level. It hasn't, this is not something that is taking effect right away. There's still layers of government it has to get through, and bureaucracy and votes and all of those things. But what it's going to do is it will place a 2-year moratorium on basically proof of work. it's kind of like a mini local version of the bill that did not go through in the EU. In a way, it's like a little testing ground to see, what the effect could be. It's only a 2-year moratorium, so this is not like an outright "we will never allow proof of work, everybody pack up and go home." It's a moratorium, and the interesting thing also is that it is based on energy. There was a similar sort of kerfuffle, shall we say, in Plattsburgh, where there have been mining facilities, and the residents have been really ticked about it because it hiked their energy rates. So that was more of an economic concern as opposed to an environmental concern. This is statewide as opposed to local, and it is focused on environmental concerns. And it was put forward by an environmental committee. So that's what's been going on in New York with their latest advancement of a mining ban. So reactions, Will, Mr. Miner?
Yeah, Mr. Miner, I do work for a mining firm, so disclosure there. I think that this story shows you how Bitcoin is going to be broken down along political lines in the near future, or at least aspects of Bitcoin could be broken down along political lines. So just taking a larger view of the US, obviously we have Republicans and Democrats, pretty even split there. And just a known fact, Bitcoin seems to be speaking to both parties in different ways. Senator Ted Cruz in Texas has been a very vocal proponent of Bitcoin and a very vocal proponent of Bitcoin mining. He's even spoken at some Bitcoin mining conferences. On the other side of the issue, we have Senator Elizabeth Warren up in Massachusetts, who's spoken against Bitcoin in very different ways on a lot of different topics, whether that be money laundering or the proof of work being too energy intensive. And I think we're seeing in some states like New York, which leans heavily Democratic, that they're going to be against the proof of work aspect of Bitcoin. Of course, they're not necessarily against other parts of Bitcoin, but they are against the proof of work part of Bitcoin, which brings into this whole conversation of what is Bitcoin? Can you change Bitcoin? Can you change this part of Bitcoin to make it more politically palatable, I should say? And I think here we're going to see, like, going forward, issues with that on the Democratic Party. They're going to be against proof of work, maybe in some instances, because that is a key platitude of the Democratic Party, is climate change and addressing climate change. And proof of work necessarily involves lots of energy usage. And energy usage means that you have to use the energy sources that are available to you, which is going to be a lot of fossil fuels. And it doesn't seem to me at this point that anyone is willing to look into the nuance of this conversation, which we've talked a lot about on the show quite a bit. And there's been endless Nick Carter op-eds about this topic as well, about how Bitcoin uses like tons of different energy sources, and it uses stranded gas and flared gas and uses stranded hydro, stuff like that. I don't think people care too much. Like, at the end of the day, it's a political issue. Political issues always seem to come down to the bullet points and the basic facts, and they're not really going to look into this question much more than that. Zach, I want to throw it over to you and get your take on this. It does seem to me just to be like flatly political.
Sir, you said climate change was a platitude. So let me just check you with my green shirt on here.
No, I said it was not a platitude of.
No, man.
I said there's a platitude of the Democratic Party.
It is part of the platform of, saving the world.
Maybe we're just using the word wrong.
Environmental catastrophes. Platitudes you give it lip service. It's fake. Blah blah blah. I mean, again, I'll play the devil's advocate.
I used the word wrong.
It's okay. I think that, the mining industry has to take this on. First of all, they need to hire some lobbyists. Second of all, they need to get some data dashboards that show actual energy usage. They need to get out in front of this thing. They need to make this known as widely as possible, what the real scope of this conversation is. Because if they're not going to define the terms of this argument, other people are going to do it, whether that's Elizabeth Warren or someone else in local state houses. So this is the Bernie Sanders meme. I am asking you once again, Bitcoin miners, to produce energy data dashboards that produce reliable facts about what this industry's carbon footprint is. If they don't do it, we're going to see these competing numbers. We see it all the time. Is it 60% renewables that are powering the Bitcoin mining industry? Or is it 20%? Is it this? Is it that? Is it that? There's no real shared set of facts. And I think if the mining industry, some of whom are large publicly traded companies, if the mining industry can establish a shared set of facts, hopefully some policy discussions can take place in a productive fashion instead of just this sort of ugly bipartisanship that we may see coming down the line. So that's me. That's me just going off on a green rant.
That was a good take. I like that.
Yeah,
take.
that's it. I'll toss it back to Christy.
Well, I think that the migration out of China is going to help with that, because it has migrated largely to countries that have, I think we'll see more transparency coming from the countries, coming from companies that are in, say, the States or Canada, because there is that extra bit of vested interest in being green, in having your carbon footprint made obvious, not just to shareholders who are interested in investing in greener companies and don't want the label of dirty carbon on them. But I think that it's as you say, Zach, it's a way for them to communicate to the community at large that they are indeed doing their part to not impact the carbon footprint of the industry itself. Right now, the numbers have been vague, and a lot of that is simply because the companies themselves are not compelled to be transparent. And I think that is shifting, just as the migration out of China has shifted. I think we're going to see that. And to be fair, like some of the mines that were in Plattsburgh in New York, for example, those were largely hydroelectric plants. The issue was not the energy usage in terms of the environment. It was in terms of the grid and how it was impacting the price of electricity to local residents. And that is something that miners have become more cognizant of over the years, is maintaining that relationship. And Will can speak to that with what you folks at Compass have been doing on reserves and other places where where mines are working hand in hand with the companies, with the communities that they are located in. So that's it for me.
I think that's. I want to get one more question in before we move on to the next subject, actually, and I want to see if I can get some more reactions out of Zach here. Zach, do you think this is going to be a political issue going forward, or am I totally off basis? I hear so many people. They're like, hey, this is not a political issue. We have people on both sides of the aisle who are pro-Bitcoin, anti-Bitcoin. But like, look at the states that are going after Bitcoin and look at the states that are embracing Bitcoin. It seems like, setting aside who's wrong or who's right, I'm interested in knowing, do you think this is going to be a political issue going forward? Or is everybody wrong and this is just going to be like, pretty even on both sides?
Yes, absolutely. It's definitely going to be a political issue. And I think we are seeing sort of a red-blue dichotomy emerge in a way that's unfortunate to the conversation, right? This is a radically neutral platform. It can be used for progressive causes and conservative causes. It is simply a censorship-resistant payments network that exists on computers around the world. There are parts of it that are going to be homed in on by various political chattering classes of these various parties. And I think the carbon cost of proof of work consensus mechanisms is certainly a conversation that is going to remain on the blue side of this conversation until some things can change. And some of those criticisms, I think, are fair and warranted. And I think there needs to be, again, more facts so there can be a shared conversation in Albany, in Austin, in DC, all the way down. Also, shout out to Control. We have a Greta Thunberg meme in the Slack. How dare you? There it is. Good shit. Good work. All right. Beep, 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 beep. This just in. We're going to the CoinDesk Sports Desk. Take it away.
Sports Desk.
We did it. That was the best one yet. Amazingly done. Well executed. Ooh, yeah, so smooth. All right, cool. All right, so crypto sponsorship stuff and sports leagues. There's a lot of questions about this happening right now. And the NFL is the latest to come out with a statement about what teams can and cannot do as it relates to being sponsored by crypto companies. This is a really interesting one. It's the nexus of marketing and sports desk. And it's also, I think, going to have ramifications further up the line as it relates to policy. We're seeing a lot of activity right now in the UK specifically around what crypto ads can and cannot include. And these conversations are sort of filtering down to league officials here in this instance with the NFL. But one that I'm super curious about is the MLB because I love baseball. It's the best sport, Will. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. They are going to have ad patches starting in the 2023 season. Hockey, they have ads up on their helmets nowadays, not right on their jerseys. They have yet to come out with an explicit statement about what can and can't be done when it comes to crypto advertisements. And I think we're starting to see these conversations emerge in the U.S. sporting scene. Interesting stuff. There is some room for crypto promotion, but there are also some guidelines as to what can't be shilled on the apparel of major teams in the NFL. I thought this one was interesting. And again, I think we're definitely going to be doing some reporting on some of the other leagues where they're going to fall on this as they also grapple with this topic. But I'm going to throw it straight to Christy for her initial take on this NFL news.
The sports take, and the $3 eliminates my my beautiful hockey jersey in the background. So first thought is, I think it's a smart move to allow blockchain companies to advertise because heck, there's money. But I think the cautious approach also makes sense. If you think back to 2017, when people were, slapping ICO labels all over everything, it got embarrassing, especially as those companies disappeared or were, shut down, or there were scams. I mean, you want to be careful. You've got a brand you need to maintain. And this is people's money that you're talking about too. You want to make sure that you're not responsible for promoting a scam that is going to hurt people. And I think having that cautious approach, making sure that things are going to stick around, is a really, really good move. So that was my initial take. I mean, you need the money. They love going after the money. Why not? But you have to be careful where you're getting it from. And everybody does it. We do it at CoinDesk. We like to think about, who is it that we allow to advertise? So why would the NFL not? So yeah, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, baby Shiba Inu coin or whatever, right? Like, it's hard to know if you're advertising something that is just bad or if it's something that, the market should be able to decide upon. And I think people are going to have interesting points of views on that. And it's going to differ from league to league. And it's going to be interesting to see. But you mentioned, Christy, just the amount of money that's being poured into these sponsorship deals. By some counts, I think in the last 18 months, some analysis has shown that it's like $1.5 billion has been spent from crypto companies on sports sponsorships. This is everything from Crypto.com reportedly spending $700 million to buy the naming rights to the Staples Center. Crypto.com also just rolled out yesterday that they're sponsoring the FIFA World Cup in Qatar this year. We got FTX, of course, putting its name both on Major League Baseball umpires and the arena of the Miami Heat. So the spending is there, the money is there. All of a sudden, I think we're having sort of this guideline conversation among the leagues as to what's going to be allowable and what is not. So I don't know. It's just going to be interesting to see how it shakes out, what the rationale is that ultimately gets articulated for what works and what doesn't. And again, whether money ultimately talks or there are going to be some ethical guidelines that are put on the NFL, the MLB, maybe even the NHL. The NBA, notably, does have some crypto team patches on their jerseys already, including Crypto.com on the beloved Philadelphia 76ers. Will, saw your hand up. Take it away.
It's also on the stanchions. It's also on the floor. I think a few other places.
Right.
So crypto's all over the NBA. It's the best sport out there, so it makes sense. The interesting thing to me is like putting sports culture and crypto together. As much as we like to think of crypto as this global phenomenon, the breadbasket for a lot of it is in the United States. There's just like a lot of money, developers here. And so it makes sense for it to work in conjunction with perhaps the most important cultural icons in America, which is sports figures, your Steph Curry's, your LeBron's, your whoever MLB player is popular these days. Maybe a few hockey teams are up there as well. Bringing those two together really brings crypto into mainstream consciousness. And so it's not super surprising to me to see this continue. In fact, I'd actually expect most other sponsorships to dry up and dip out as we go into like a possible bear market. I think that marketing teams should start putting money into projects and sports teams that are going to have long-term implications. Like having your little crypto patch on a Celtics jersey is going to have a better benefit than I think sponsoring another podcaster or something like that. It just makes sense, and I think it fits American culture really well. Christy, I'll give it to you for a last take.
I just want to put it on the record right now. I want to ask you guys, who's going to be the first one? Who's going to be the first blockchain company to get their patch out there or sign a deal with the NFL?
I mean, I got to take the odds-on favorite. It's got to be FTX at this point, right? They've sponsored.
FTX.
They've gone heavy on the sports stuff. So it's either FTX or Crypto.com. But I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Christy? Who are you betting on?
I was actually going to say FTX, but I'm going to go with Crypto.com. Even though they are sort of wiping up the NBA, maybe they will go into the NFL too. Well,
you know, I was watching a Formula One clip the other day, and there is a Formula One car with the CryptoPunk like on the side, like right under where the driver sits. So I don't know if that counts. Maybe it's just
like an individual sponsorship from that punk.
I think maybe it's just that punk. He has that punk. Yeah.
Okay, I'll flip the question real quick. What team is going to pick? What team is going to be like the Patriots, Broncos? Who we got? Who's really looking for some cash right now? I like the Jaguars.
Jaguars, Florida tie.
Yeah,
Florida action.
They're not doing so hot.
Okay, I know more about blockchain companies than I know about football teams, so that's not a fair
it's
question
sports
for me.
desk. Anything goes in the sports desk.
I can tell you all about CFL football, not so much NFL.
Not interested, and the audience probably isn't either. I think
FCX the names are so good. Is it the Argonauts? Is it the Alouettes? Is that the CFL?
Argos. But okay.
Such
so what team?
Names.
Because like literally, I know nothing about American football. What team is Brady on?
Brady is on the Bucs again.
He retired and then he unretired. I think he's on the Buccaneers, but I don't know.
I'm getting Tampa Bay.
Control is very passionate about the subject for some reason.
Tom Brady can call up the CEO of Bitcoin and can say, CEO of Bitcoin, let's get a Bitcoin logo on here, right?
Let's do a Bitcoin.
Yeah, he also is an FTX shareholder, so we'll see. He's an FTX ambassador. Maybe he'll pull some strings. All right, we're going with the Bucks. All right, well, that was a fun sports desk. Also a prediction markets desk brought to you by The Hash. All right, we're here. You're there. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks for sticking with us. I'm Zach. We got Christy and Will. Have a great day, and go watch CoinDesk TV New Money. It's on at 1, I think, and then All About Bitcoin. It's on at 3. And there's all sorts of great stuff you can read between now and then. It's perfect. It's a match
like Mining Week stories.
That stuff too. All good. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
See ya.
Bye, guys.